my weirdest, most unhinged reading recommendations. Hello, and welcome to another bookish video from me, Johanna, me, my dog, and books. I am coming at you today. Check the wee mic. I've gone pro. I still have no idea what I'm doing. Anyway, today I'm coming at you with my weirdest, most unhinged reading recommendations. First up is Lapvona by Otessa. I think this is my first and only, although I have recently hauled one of her books. And yeah, my review for this basically started, WTF, what have I just read? But here's a very brief synopsis. In a sort of medieval-esque village, there's a young shepherd boy who is motherless, finds himself in this unlikely pivot of a power struggle that puts all manner of faith to the test. I mean, honestly, it's pretty hard to describe because the whole thing feels just weird. It's just weird. But I was kind of in awe of her writing because to be able to write that level of weirdness is a skill. Her writing is beautiful, it's immersive, but I did worry at times there was things I was just not getting. But then the other part of me is thinking, maybe that's the point of this book. Word of warning, it's a very bleak and dismal read, so be prepared, it's not happy chappy. The next one is Deliver Me by Elle Nash. Now, Elle Nash is an American author who lives in Glasgow in Scotland. I have actually been to a book event where I've heard her discuss this book. She's so nice. She's so nice. But first in this book, we have a main character called Dee Dee, and she works in a Missouri meatpacking plant. And as you can imagine, it's a pretty brutal job. But at the same time, so she's got this really brutal, tricky job, and she's also grappling with this innate desire to become a mother. So, word of warning, as I describe this to you, you will pick up pretty quickly if this is the kind of book you should or shouldn't pick up because of the kind of content within it. So, Dee Dee's gone through quite a lot of miscarriages. And when one of her pregnancies finally for her looks like it's going to term, she enters a whole level of extreme paranoia. But in amongst all that, she currently lives with a really wild, unhinged boyfriend, and her mother is very judgy and calls her every day. And so this is a whole story about Dee Dee navigating pregnancy while worrying she's going to lose everything. I was blown away by this. It's a hard book to say that you would enjoy because it's pretty on the nose. We follow Dee Dee is a wonderful character, but I was simultaneously disturbed and kind of freaked out by her while also feeling a lot of empathy because she was the product of society and her upbringing and where she was. This book is brutal when it comes to, so I would say it's maybe kind of airs in body horror, but obviously, as you can tell from the synopsis, quite a tricky topic to read about, which as a child-free adult, I didn't struggle with, but I can imagine it is probably tricky for a lot of people. In saying that, I found it so compelling. The book covers so much and actually isn't that long. I'm sure it's less than 300 pages, but I might be wrong. It covers motherhood, the societal pressures and importance that is put onto women about the need to be mothers, class, mental health, miscarriages, familial connections, fundamentalist religions, and first love. This book packs an absolute punch. The next one is one of two about eyes. This one's called Wake Up and Open Your Eyes by McLeod Chapman. I think I read it earlier this year, and wow. See, like, just given the world we live in and the impact of like right-wing TV and social media, this feels even more poignant, sort of meta, which makes it even more unhinged, but also like weirdly possible in a like Black Mirror-esque kind of way. So in this book, we follow a main character called Noah, who pretty much freaks out after he picks up a voicemail from his mum. So he makes a journey to return back to his childhood home, where he finds both his parents in a catatonic state, victims of like a mysterious possession that is being linked to right-wing TV or media consumption. Yeah. And so he realizes the world around him is changing as people become almost like rage-filled, possessed if they've been exposed to right-wing media. You can see how this actually is both simultaneously unhinged and possibly like real life. It was fundamentally unsettling to the core. And Chapman does a great job. So this was the other one, is it What Kind of Mother he wrote, which I really liked as well. Similarly weird and unhinged. And this one, he continues to just, his writing is so unsettling, and he writes in a way where you just feel, as the story goes on, the level of tension and paranoia building within the plot and the characters is immense. Given the topic, it felt apocalyptic, but also simultaneously near future, so it just gave me the absolute chills. This is just like so poignant, but also just a bloody brilliant, weird, unhinged book, as all these recs are, to be fair. Here is my second book about eyes. I love this book so much, I literally have 2 different editions of it. It is utterly unique and weirdly wonderful. It's called The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. In short, it's a feminist psychological horror with an absolutely brilliant Korean American protagonist who becomes a revenge serial killer as her family starts to fall apart. Who doesn't love feminist revenge rage? Firstly, the cover, the title, and the synopsis sold this book to me, and I loved it. I have to say, given the cover and the title, it maybe gives an inkling that there may be some eyeball eating in this, and I can confirm that is actually the case. So if you're not a fan of body horror, leave well alone. So we follow Ji-won, who lives with her mum and her sister as they're trying to navigate the aftermath of their dad leaving their mum for another woman, or leaving them for another woman. So as you can imagine, it's not the happiest of family times. And to try and bring luck back into the life, Ji-won's mum eats fish eyeballs and encourages her daughters to, and at that point, that is when Ji-won's obsession with eyeballs begins. I mean, the fact I'm even talking to you about a book about eyeballs and eyeball eating, probably in itself, just, you don't need any more explanation as to why this is unhinged and weird. But this is not just a story about an eyeball-obsessed serial killer. No, it's so much more than that. This story has amazing societal commentary on racism, misogyny, the absolute fascination and hypersexualization of Asian women, as well as dealing with depression and abandonment. Like, so much is jam-packed into this book. I actually just can't believe it's her debut. And I literally will read whatever she writes next. The next is maybe it's not. Classic Scottish weird horror. It's The Wasp Factory by Iain Banks, which, if you've read this, you might be shocked to hear that certainly in most Scottish schools, it's a book that you would read in English. Terrifying. Now, when was this first published? Let me check. 1984, and it's less than 200 pages. The Wasp Factory by Iain Banks is a book that you, if you have not read, go in knowing very little, and I'll just give you a very slight synopsis. It's also a book that if you read years ago, please reread it, because I reread it not that long ago and absolutely adored it. So like I said, the less you know going in, the better. Other than it's a dark, gothic-esque classic horror novel. And it does a great job of challenging people's perceptions of death, pain, and the stories we either tell each other or told that mould us into people that would possibly undertake horrific acts of violence. That being said, somehow Iain Banks manages to thread some humour through this story as well. And with the two main characters, Frank and Eric, that despite their actions and their thoughts, which you as a reader are exposed to, you can still feel levels of compassion and understanding. Honestly, this is one of the most conflicting books I've ever read, where it really pushes the boundaries of shock and compassion. Like, I would say this is classic Unhinged weirdness. Another one, which is not a classic yet, it only came out this year and I literally have just read it last week. It's The Lamb by Lucy Rose. Wow. So this feels folklore, dark fairy tale, gothic horror. Now we follow two main characters at the outset, which is Margot and her mama. And the two of them live kind of in the woodlands, out of the way from people. They have this pretty strange relationship in that every so often a stranger, as they will call strays, will turn up at the door, they'll take them in, and Margot's mum will kill them and proceed to eat them. They would eat them as a family. And yeah, so, you know, cannibalism, you can't get more unhinged than that, right? But it is so much more than that. Oh, I can't believe this is a debut. Oh, the whole book is told through the narration of Margot, who's only about 11, and which I actually think makes this story really palatable. We follow her as she goes to school in a wee bus, her and the bus driver. And she has a wee friend called Abby, but Margot doesn't tell anyone about what happens at home because she knows she's supposed to stay on the LD, don't like create any attention, don't have anyone looking at you, thinking about you, or getting too involved, because what goes on between her and her mum at their home, it needs to stay quiet and private. And then one day there is a stray that comes along called Eden. And yeah, their lives change as Eden suddenly becomes Margot's mum's like absolute love obsession. The two of them decide that they're going to live together in love and kill people, like eat people as they arrive, and Margot feels pushed out. That's all I want to say. Super short chapters. It's actually not that long. I'm sure it's less than 350 pages. It's so atmospheric. I thought the writing was poetic. I could absolutely visualize this as like a movie adaptation. It was so cleverly done. The ending was phenomenal. And honestly, like, there's just so much in this book that I want to talk to you about, but I can't because it will be spoilers. Other than 5 stars is what I gave this one. And talking of cannibalism, I can't talk about unhinged weird books without mentioning one of my favourite horror books of all the times. It is Tender as a Flesh by Augustina Bazterric. We live in a world in this book where Society is no longer able to eat meat because of like some sort of virus in meat where it makes us ill. So instead of just eating vegetables and fruit, we decide to farm human meat because we've got to have our meat, you know? And so we follow this main character who works in a human meat factory. As you can imagine, it's pretty grotesque. And he takes one of the human meat products home. That's all you need to know, other than obviously it's a book in translation and it is translated phenomenally. Augustina Bazterric's ability to talk about this topic, which again, like The Lamb, is so much more than just about cannibalism. It is about society. It's about humans' own destruction and ability to destroy the planet. The character development, the descriptions felt like an utter masterpiece. I don't think I've ever read a book quite like this where I was simultaneously addicted to reading it and but didn't want it to end, whilst being repulsed by what I was reading on the page. And in my review in Goodreads, which I was checking before I was doing this review, I put a quote from the book that I just thought really summed it up. So I'm going to read it now. It is, "The human being is the cause of all evil in this world. We are our own virus." Like, there's so much societal commentary in this book. It's hard to put into context, but it's so beautiful. And, just check, it is only 209 pages, and it packs an absolute punch. The next is, I mean, even the cover probably implies how weird and unhinged this is. The next is Sister Maiden Monster by Lucy A. Snyder. Right, I'm going to have to maybe read the synopsis here so I don't because it's wild. It's so wild. I want to get it right. So the synopsis says, to survive, they must evolve. A virus tears across the globe, transforming its victims in nightmarish ways. As the world collapses, dark forces pull a small group of women together. So women, feminist vibes, loved it, right? I was like, oh yes. Then here's the three women. Erin, once quiet and closeted, acquires an appetite for a woman and her brain. Why does forbidden fruit taste so good? And then we have Savannah. A professional BDSM switch discovers a new turn-on, committing brutal murders for our eldritch masters. That's not the wildest. Wait till you hear this one. Mariva, plagued with chronic tumours, is too horrified to acknowledge her divine role in the coming apocalypse. As her growths multiply, so too does her depression. Right. This is probably, I would say, the wildest, most unhinged book out of all of these recommendations. So enter with care. What I would say is, as you can imagine, even just from the synopsis, some of the scenes in this book will never leave my brain, ever. They're still in there, but I love a good dystopian horror. But this probably blends into a bit of sci-fi, transgressive horror. Is definitely gender bending. It's also definitely a book that does not hold back from descriptions of gore, body horror, and at times graphic sex, which I struggled with at times, but I was kind of so in awe with the premise and the characters and the weirdness of it, I kind of just went with it. But I would say if you have a better tolerance of graphic sex than me, which is pretty much zero, you might not find it that. I would probably have given this a higher rating if it wasn't for that, but that's just my general preference when it comes to reading books. And I also find this is the kind of book where I'm if this writer can write to this level of gore and repulsion, I'm kind of in awe. So I would say, if none of that's put you off, definitely go in knowing no more than that, but also be aware that there might be quite a lot of content, triggers. But officially the wildest of all the books in this recommendations list. One of my favourite horrors of, was it last year? So I've since bought their second book, so I can't confirm on that, I've not read it, is Maeve Fly by CJ Leede. Now, this is a cover in the UK, which, to be fair, I much prefer to also this cover, but it's US. I do like it, but this is my favourite, which is unusual. Sometimes I'm not a mega fan of UK covers, but this time I am. So I started and I'm going to read the top part, my Goodreads review on this one, because I started it with a quote from the book. And it says, "Men have always been permitted in fiction and in life to simply be what they are, no matter how dark or terrifying that might be. But with women, we expect an answer, a reason." So, sums it up, right? This is just a roller coaster of a read. I adored it. It messed with my head at the time, and I still think fondly of it in a very wild, unhinged, weird way. So, by day, Maeve Fly, who is the main character, works as a princess in a big theme park. So imagine like a Disney princess in Disney World, but they don't use those words. But fundamentally, that's her day job. She's children's favourite ice princess, but by night, she hangs around in dive bars with a drink in one hand and a book in another, because she's an absolute bookish queen who also loves Halloween. But when her best friend's brother moves into town, something slightly unhinged is awakened within her. That's all I think you should know going in. Again, with some of these, I would say go in as unknowing as you can. She's pretty much a depraved, Halloween-loving Disney princess, and I was pulled in from page 1. And she has a penchant for wanting to kill people, and I'm kind of like, Maeve, if you lived in real life, I would 100% want to be your friend. Just don't kill me, please. I loved the writing style. I loved the dark humour. I loved Maeve's obsession with Halloween and Halloween songs, because I can absolutely relate. And Maeve's friendship with her bestie and her grandmother is just utterly heartwarming. Like, it's so adorable. And that's despite all the violence and stuff around her, you know, you just can't help but feel for her, in my opinion. But caveat, this is extreme horror, so lots of content warnings, maybe not for everyone, but if you want a weird, unhinged, dark horror, this is for you. The next is Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder, which you can now probably watch on streaming, I think, was adapted into a movie with Rachel McAdams, who I also love. But this book is obviously utterly weird and unhinged. So we follow a former artist, now a stay-at-home mum, who starts to experience like really weird physical transformations. She's like developing canine-like features while she's kind of grappling with her change in identity as no longer an artist, but just a mum. All while her husband remains completely oblivious. And desperate for an answer, she stumbles across a book where she reads more about women similar to her. There was a whole lot of feminine vibes, social commentary, and a lot about womanhood and motherhood. Magical realism when it comes to the unnamed main character's transformation just kept me thinking, WTF? Like, what? It's written, and weirdly, it's written mostly in the third person, so if you have a problem with that, probably don't pick it up. The whole book's written like that. And at the same time, they never mention the name of the main character, but I kind of loved that weird storytelling. Like, I was gripped. I think if you were like a newish mum and or pregnant, I would maybe avoid this at this moment in time. It would probably give you anxiety. And so despite being child-free, this book definitely made me want to be a bit more feral in life, just generally. I don't even know what that means, though. So, Wild, WTF is a book utterly unhinged, feminist, unique, and brave. I still need to watch the adaptation, though I haven't done that yet. If you have, let me know in the comments. Now, this one, I First watched the film years ago. I can't even remember when the film came out, like literally years ago. And then only years later discovered it as a book. And it is Battle Royale by Koushun Takami. Now, this is described as a bit like Lord of the Flies meets Squid Games. Probably only describing it as that now because like Squid Games didn't exist when this came out. Like this book is from 1999. Does that make it a classic? Oh my god. Anyway, it's kind of dystopian, maybe horror. Yeah, it's horror. So, we have a group of junior high school kids where they're taken to a remote island, and as part of the government sort of authoritarian, I can never say that word, authoritarian program, they're provided with arms, the students are, and left on this island to kill each other until only one is remaining. I think when it first came out in Japan, it was like heavily criticised as being like violent exploitation, and that then kind of off the back of that become like an absolute cult classic. It's basically like Lord of the Flies for the 21st century if you've not seen Squid Games. And I have to say, like, I hold the movie up here, like, love it. And so I kind of went in going, oh no, what if? Like, my only other example of that is love the movie Jaws, hate the book Jaws. In this instance, love the movie Battle Royale, love the book Battle Royale. And I think you can get like a whole manga series as well of Battle Royale. It's just such a cult classic. Intense is probably one of the best words to describe this book. It's a chonk. It's a chonk. A chonk of intensity. I mean, it's basically a group of students on a remote island, like forced into a whole game of survival. You know, it's maybe like not the gun, like a totally weirder and more unhinged version of the Hunger Games without the big party about it. But the book does a really good job on making comments about societal authoritarianism. I can't say that word. Authoritarianism. Did I get it? I'm not saying it again. Government control, loss of innocence, survival, and the dark aspects of human nature when power goes unchecked. Also, is a book that explores friendship and sacrifice amidst the absolute chaos and violence of this game. Amazing, diverse range of characters, all who had their own story. Brilliant character development. I just thought it was amazing. Like, I'd love to read it again, and I can't even remember how long it's been since I've watched the movie. I need to rewatch it. So there then, friends, are just some of my favourite weird and unhinged reading recommendations. If you've read any of these, let me know in the comments. If there's any other weird and unhinged books that you would recommend that I should check out or others to check out, please also let me know in the comments. And I'd like to say thank you as always for liking, for commenting, and if you don't already, please do subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you in another bookish video very, very soon. Cheerio!